Welcome everyone to the Mr. Mike Show. Mr. Mike is on a mission to explore the unique stories of inspiring personalities from different career paths. On this podcast, he interviews guests from all kinds of backgrounds and discusses their life experiences, successes, and failures. Every episode is an insightful, engaging conversation that will leave listeners feeling inspired. I hope you enjoy this episode. You have an array of experience hosting shows. So let's get into like the beginning. How did you get into show hosting? Number one, like was that what you wanted to do, or you kind of like fell into it?
My background for over 25 years is sales and marketing in the corporate world. That's what I did. I could sell anybody a widget, and I enjoyed that tremendously. And then the world changed a few years ago, as we all know. And I lost my job at that time because I was a road warrior and I went and visited and I was on the road all the time. Well, when the doors of the world closed, there was no place for me to go. So, and I understood, it was an amicable separation, and I completely understood because the world had changed. So I literally never thought of doing something like a podcast or a TV show. And the pandemic hit and I lost my job, and I told myself, well, not been in this situation before, Kim. What in the world are we going to do? We, as in me, myself, and I, because the three of us talk regularly. So the three of us. And so I said, all right, give yourself 24 hours to be mad. I mean, good and angry, just let that all out. So for 24 hours, I was mad and I was angry, and I did it really well for 24 hours. And then the next day I woke up, I'm like, all right, what are you good at? What are you passionate about? And what do you want to do? And so I thought about it, and I had been writing for years. I'm like, well, I want to work more on books. I want to put focus on books. I want to do that. I could never do it self-sustaining. I would do it in my spare time outside of having a 9-to-5. Like, I want to work more on my books. And I thought, well, what's this podcasting thing all about? Literally, that's what I thought. I don't know anything about it. I Googled it. And 2 hours later, I recorded my first episode. Not having a clue what I was doing, just did it on my laptop, didn't have a good mic, anything, just did it. And, now I'm over 170 episodes in, still rolling along with the weekly show, which has been amazing. And I learned a lot along the way, and I learned from my guests, and I learned from research and just trial and error. And around that same time, the television show opportunity came up, and that show is called The Right Stuff, the Author's Voice. So it's WRITE. And it was from one of my podcast guests. That's how that came about.
Interesting.
She said, hey, I just joined this brand new network, and they're looking for dynamic hosts, and you've been such a great guest. Let me send you some info and, think about it. So she sent it to me, and I chewed on it for a while, and I'm like, do I really want to do this? And then I'm thinking, well, why not?
Yeah.
And so I jumped on that, and it was literally a brand new network. And I thought, this will be fun to be starting out with a network that's, I'll grow with it. So it's been really fun. There's been bumps in the road in that too, as with any new venture. But there's going to be new episodes dropping very soon, and it's it's all online streaming. And there's several different, there's so many different shows on there and different hosts from a wide range of topics. Mine just happens to be about authors because I love writing, and I love talking to other authors and finding out what makes them tick. And, horror authors, how in the world do you come up with all that really scary stuff? It's like, how does your brain work that way? So it's really fun. I've had an absolute blast doing it, and I'm going to keep on doing it, just because each person I meet is a blessing. I am left with something more, after I have a guest on my show, whether it's the podcast or the television show. It's just, I've learned so much, and I've made some amazing friends from all over the world that I still keep in touch with. And I'm sure you have done the same with your show. I mean, it's a whole nother realm that we're in, that the world opened up when the doors closed.
That is the best way to put it. And it's the truth. And I think, well, my originally, because I'm primarily on Twitter, but originally I made my Twitter account and was using that for education purposes because I was doing graduate studies at night. And part of the one of the classes, I think a vice principal of mine or an ex-colleague of mine had said you need it for the class. So I said, okay, I'll get on that before I start the program, and that was 4 years ago or 3 years ago or something. And so I got rolling with Twitter, and then the Twitter is primarily education based, and it kind of snowballed, and I made all these connections with people, and then you're like you're networking and you're doing these professional developments online, and then that once you get through, you're like you start getting people following you for other stuff. And then I self-published a poetry book, and then that people writers were following me and authors were following me, and then now 4 years later you're talking to people message you, hey Mike, how's it going, I want your thoughts on this or whatever. And it's really the power of social media. Not I know there's a lot of people who get addicted to, like, Instagram and just kind of flip flop through the day or
Right.
whatever. And I put out tweets to make people, ask, just to engage and stuff. But the power of social media and connecting, like you were saying, and making friends when the door closed and then another one opened. It's like, who would have thought podcasting, TV shows would have opened up? You had no idea, and that's kind of the point. Like it's the journey more than the destination. Like you kind of grow with it. But I think it's kind of your story resonates because it's a lot of people say the same thing. It's I lost my job, or the pandemic changed something, or there was a divorce, or there was whatever happened, and it kind of just shifted into a new, like, life just took this path, and then we're like a whole, yeah, right, like it's just that
Yes.
avenue opened up, and it's fantastic. But that's amazing, and I'll just keep babbling for 20 minutes. But I want to let's focus on your podcast. So you're like me. You didn't know anything about the podcasting, and then you went and did some research and recorded an episode, because it's essentially what I did. I had, like, this was not the microphone I was using. This is not the computer I was using. Like, I had really, like, bare bones, and the first episode I recorded, the quality was not great. All right, so you did your first episode, you recorded it, and then you fast forward 170 plus episodes. Um, what's the podcast show about? Break it down for us. Tell everybody.
So it's called Let Fear Bounce. And I came up with the name because I get a lot of comments on the name of the podcast, especially, from my guests. They'll be like, oh, I just love the name of your show. But I have on there also tossing out nuggets of hope. So you can't live under the umbrella of fear. And when I started the podcast, that's all that was floating in the air. You saw it, you heard it, you breathed it in every day. Television, radio, it was just tossing fear, fear, fear everywhere. And I'm the kind of person who says, nah, nope, not landing on me. This is going to bounce. Not landing on me. I am armored up. This fear is not going to whirl my world. And so that's how I was picturing it, me armored up, and little demons with their poison little darts shooting them at me, with their little crossbows. Yeah. And they would just hit my armor and bounce. And that's how I think. I think in pictures. So that's how the name of the show came about, was Let Fear Bounce. And I have people on. I started asking people I knew, like personal friends or people I'd known from the corporate world, from networking, things like that. So I started asking those folks on and just saying, what's a fear that you've had in your life that you are working on, or you've overcome, or you just blasted through, and that's how it started. And it continues to be that way, but it seems, and I'm sure your show has done the thing. Well, it has evolved into something different. So I have a lot of folks. It seems that most of them are authors that come on. It just works that way. Just works out that way.
Yeah.
And I have found that every creative person I have met, and that's an author or, philanthropist or photographer, what have you, whatever it is the person does, they do something creative. There is something in their background that shifted their view of the world.
Mm-hmm.
Some sort of maybe trauma or loss, something of the sort. And those are the things that I don't go digging for those. I don't want to ever be intrusive or inadvertently trigger someone or be hurtful by asking questions that very well could hurt someone. I let my guests just kind of go. Like I said earlier, I ask one question at the beginning and then we just roll. And I kind of follow the guest lead in what they're talking about. I take notes and I'll say, hey, a minute ago, you just said, and then we just kind of go like that. But I've found the stories that come out of people and the history, there's so much that they share that others need to hear. There's always someone sitting out there that has been where you're at or been where you've been, but they feel so desperately alone.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed with the guests feeling comfortable enough to open up and share stuff. I've had numerous guests say, wow, I never planned on going there. Or, wow, Kim, you're good at this. I'm like, I didn't ask you to go anywhere. But it's been a huge blessing. And the feedback that I get from listeners has been great, because they're, like, oh, wow, you had me laughing so hard. And then all of a sudden it was like, bam, oh my gosh, they're talking directly to me. And to me, that's high praise. That is high praise, I think, when you can touch someone exactly where they need to feel it at that moment, because everybody struggles with something. Everybody struggles with something. Now, my show is not, mournful or depressing or dark. I mean, we laugh a lot, joke around a lot, drink a lot of coffee, and talk about dogs. That all comes about with it. It's just a casual chat like you and I are doing. And I think that makes it much more comfortable for my guests. And it's just been an absolute pleasure. And I'm so glad that I had that little thought that said, what about this podcast thing? I'm so glad that I had that thought and just jumped in, not knowing what I was doing, just jumped in, feet first, and said, let's go, let's rock and roll.
Well, it's definitely different. And I mean, having that opportunity, like you said, bringing people on and they're sharing things that that you didn't even ask for. They feel safe. It's like a safe space. Then they get comfortable with you. They maybe listen to prior episodes, and it's happened. Like people share some things the last episode I put out, author Robert Chiosi, he was in prison, and he shared all that and how that was about, and he became an author and went through that. And then we've had other people share stories about teaching related stuff, and then a student lost their parent. How do you deal with that? And it comes out and you didn't ask, and then they just go down that route. And but then there's other guests. I've recorded episodes with guests that I haven't released because they were there for the wrong reasons, and it didn't work out. So I just don't publish that stuff. And it's time put in, but at the same time I'd rather not put it out. But I would say the majority of people really come genuinely want to chat, have something to share. And like you said, a lot of authors want to come and share their content, and it was fine. And this is what this is about for me. It's come share your stories, come share your content. And then at the same time, you get to hear some really interesting stories from people. And I think, like you said, it's kind of like it's a blessing. I enjoy talking to people in person. I especially enjoy talking to people who want to sit down randomly. Imagine yourself at a coffee shop and you're sitting down by yourself reading a book, coffee, and a person comes down. You don't know who they are. They sit beside you, say, "Hey, can I sit here? My name's so and so, and what do you do for a living?" And they just kind of chat you up for absolutely no reason. I love that. Like, that's fantastic. A lot of people today will kind of think that's a little weird. It's like, don't come up to me in public and talk to me. I don't know who you are, but I'm like, that's like, oh yeah, come, no problem. I'm sitting here anyway. So, yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying. And then, so the podcast, and then the podcast led into the TV show, right? And the
Right.
TV show is still going strong. So how do you go about that? Do you go into the office, you record at home? How's that working?
I actually, for the television show, it's done pretty much like a podcast, and it's, it's all done virtually. Although I have a different setup for that, different lighting, uh, much better microphone, a green screen that we use, so I can have, and my guests have to have the same, close to the same setup. Their lighting has to be right, their sound has to be right, and they have to have a green screen,
Mm-hmm.
because we use the same virtual background, which is my studio. So I do everything from home. They're shifting, the network is shifting around where a lot of the stuff is going to go into the metaverse.
Mm.
I don't know a whole lot about that. I'm along for the ride. you know
Yeah.
because things are just morphing and growing in so many amazing directions. So that's something that's coming up soon. I don't know when, and I don't know how my show might fit into the metaverse. But for now, it's kind of set up kind of like a podcast style, only there's a lot more put into it, because it has to be visually pleasing, obviously, because it's going to be on television.
Yeah.
So it's on Amazon Prime and Apple and Google and Roku and all kinds of other. I think there's 11 or 12 platforms right now, and I can never remember them all. And they're adding more constantly. So it's pretty exciting. It's pretty exciting stuff, to be on there. And they're shifting around how things. They're not going to drop episodes weekly. They're going to do them by season now. So this, very soon and into the beginning of next year, the platform's going to change a little bit. So it's going to be dropped by seasons instead of by episode. So that's kind of fun too, that you can binge watch if you want,
What?
and
Yeah.
and I like to have all of my, so there's a lot more, it's a lot more regimented for the television show. So you have to have this many episodes in by this day, so it's much more more stickler about it, which I don't mind because I love batching or, bulk batching shows. And then I gives myself a buffer to relax, So I do that for the television show as well as my podcast. I like to be at least 6 weeks ahead on my podcast. So if something happens and I'm unable to record or a personal issue comes up, or if I just want to take a week off, so it's been a fun ride, been interesting. And I've learned a tremendous amount.
It's one of those mediums that you can never stop learning. And
Right.
especially if you're relatively new into it, there's like the technical details are insane. Like
Yeah.
what microphone am I using? I have no idea.
I
Um,
know.
yeah, what software am I using? Well, there's so many of them. Or do you using a paid? Or using this? It's I mean, I'm still learning. At some point, I will upgrade more. I'm just in the process of renovating and trying to make. I'm in the spare bedroom slash closet, so I'm in the process of renovating the entire house myself. And
Oh,
between everything, well, I was also off with a concussion, so I did nothing for 8 months plus. So I only started really doing stuff now. Um, get kicked in the head too many times at work, and this is what happens. But
well,
going
you just do what you can.
well, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even butter toast, so it was
Oh
really,
my.
it was pretty rough. Yeah, I was primarily a special education teacher, so I worked with kids with autism, taught mostly kindergarten to grade 3, and then over the last 7 years, I've had, this being my third, I've had 3 concussions from students hitting me in the head.
Oh goodness.
2 kicks and then a headbutt to the face, and then yeah, they take a toll. So this one was pretty long. It kind of robs you of your life, your routines, right? And it's kind of,
Right.
and then you trying to pick up the pieces, putting it back together. So I kind of feel more myself lately. I've been doing podcasting and interviews and renovations, but that's how the world goes. Life gives you lemons, and sometimes you can't make a lemonade.
Right. Well, yeah, you never know what life's going to throw at you. You just don't.
going forward to your book on Amazon, Paw Prints on the Couch. So it's a Kindle edition. Tell us about that.
The Kindle was just released. There will be a paperback coming out soon in a couple weeks here. Paw Prints on the Couch. It's an anthology, and I do that as well. I coordinate anthologies where I bring authors together and put it all in a book. So this is my 1, 2, 3, 4. This is my 5th anthology. But I've been wanting for years to do one on pets because I'm a huge dog lover. I am a firm believer in rescue, and my dogs have been rescue dogs. And I just thought, I'm just going to do it. What am I waiting for? So I'm going to start it out with an anthology because I do have a solo book of just me all about dogs, and conversations with my dogs actually is what it's about. But I wanted to do this Paw Prints on the Couch and get other people, their stories too, as well as mine in there. So that was the ebook was just released, and it's all stories from about 10 different people sharing how their rescue pets or pets that they found or that just showed up at their door, how it's enriched their lives, how it's changed their lives, and just that story behind it. And it's just, to me, those are all, little nuggets of hope. Every story has a little nugget of hope in it, because it's all cats and dogs. The stories are about cats and dogs and one horse. We have one horse in there. Yeah, one horse named Midnight. And they're just amazing stories. And I was so excited to get this out there and rolling. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it might play out, because things, how when you put something out into the world and then all these other doors might start creaking open, you're like, oh, let me peek in there. Oh, that sounds fun. Let's try that, So I have all kinds of ideas in my head surrounding Paw Prints on the Couch. And, who knows, it might turn into a series. Maybe there'll be another 1 or 2 books that follow. I don't know yet. I just want to see how this one goes. But it was so fun putting it together and reading the stories, because they're going to make you laugh. They do make you cry, because unfortunately, pets' lives are so much shorter than ours. But each story is a blessing, and there's a lot of people that I know personally have just recently lost pets in the last few months. And I know how crushing that is because I've been there too. And I think it'll also be very helpful, so you might be crying, but you'll be smiling through the tears too,
I grew up with animals. I think we've had everything, every dog, cat, iguana, birds. If you go to goldfish, we grew goldfish from this to this in the backyard in a pond.
Yeah.
And how many times did cats just kind of like crawl into the house stray and to curl up on the couch and say, well, I'm staying here. And my parents took them in. We love animals. They're people. Like they have little souls. They become children. They fill a void that you didn't know you had, and the companionship. And it's just one of those things that for people who don't have animals, for whatever reasons, they can't afford it, or they just afraid, or it's you can't explain it unless you have a pet. And I
Right.
think, and if you really treat your pet like a person, like a part of the family, it's special.
Oh my goodness. Yes. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine my life without a dog. After I had my last dog, his name was Digger. He was 14, and just, oh my goodness, he was, I don't know if people have had numerous pets throughout their lives like I have. There's always that one. Not that you didn't love all the rest of them just as much, but there's always that one that you will continue to think about for the rest of your life. And Digger was that one for me. And oh, I was crushed. I was crushed for 3 months. 3 months. It was horrible. I'd wake up crying, I'd go to bed crying for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, Kim, pull yourself together. This is crazy. What are you doing? And I'm never getting a dog again. I can't do it because, wow, holy cow, this hurts and I can't handle it anymore. And 3 months after that, I just got this thought in my head. I was driving to work one day, and it was literally words that came to me. There's a dog out there that needs you. And I immediately answered out loud, driving to work. No, no, I can't do it. Even thinking about Digger's making me cry. I can't do it. I miss him so much. And that those words just kept playing around in my head. There's a dog out there that needs you.
Mm.
So got online, looked at my local shelter. There was one dog on there, which is really unusual because they're usually filled with dogs. There was one dog on there. And I went, I guess I'll call, see if I can meet him. I was just like resigning myself to it,
Yeah.
And I called and, set up an appointment to go meet this little guy. And he caught my eye because he was really, really interesting looking at a black head, a fawn body, white feet, and a white patch on his chest, one brown eye and one ice blue eye.
Oh.
Very unique looking. And so I went and, met him, and he was really ill, very, very skinny, like skin and bones, very ill and really skittish. And I thought, can I do this? Because my heart broke just looking at him.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me, my first thought was, I hate humans, And so they said, well, we can bring him in. So they have a meet and greet room. So I sat on this, cement floor. I just sat there and I told myself, all right, he has to choose you. Don't say anything. Don't move. So I didn't. And they brought him in, and he paced back and forth. And his head was hanging the whole time. He's scratching at the door. He wouldn't come near me, just pacing. And my heart was just breaking. And I sat there. I'm like, don't say anything. Don't move. Because he was really skittish. Then he started tentatively, after about 10 minutes, coming up to sniff at me, sniff at my hand. He'd back away real quick, sniff at my other hand, back away real quick. And then he did that for a few minutes. And then I don't know how long it was. I remember just sitting there thinking, maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe, maybe I'm not his person. And he came up and sniffed my shoulder and sat down beside me and leaned his entire body against me. And he's a big dog, leaned his entire body against me, put his chin on my shoulder. And I just barely turned my head, and it was just that ice blue eye looking up at me. And I just thought, or I said out loud, oh, there you are. I guess you're coming home with me, and that's how I got the dog I have now. And his name is Dexter, and he is no longer ill, skinny, or skittish. He is a complete goofball, full of personality and very, very vocal.
Well, there you go. You brought him in, you nurtured him, and now he's a character. Now,
oh my goodness, yes.
Now
he's thriving. He's thriving. Let's put it that way.
Yes, of course. Now I'm gonna have to tell my wife. I'm like, we should go get a dog. It's gonna kill me. My parents have a pug. His name's Rambo. He's a black pug. He's about 7 now, and he has diabetes now. He in the last, I think, 4 months, he's diagnosed with diabetes. So poor guy's got to get shots all the time.
Aww.
And he's withering away. Like, it's not. Aww. He went from chubby pug to he's turning into bones. I don't think he'll make it till Christmas, unfortunately. And
that is the hardest thing to watch.
Well, you're watching him wither away, and no matter what you do, you bring him, you say, well, adjust his insulin and make sure he's on a regimented diet and he's not eating too much. And guy, he loves carrots. He loves all kinds of food, like it's just, yeah. And no, it's so sad to see that he's withering away. And
yeah, it's crushing.
Yeah.
My own personal experience, for me anyway, crushing.
But yeah, animals. I love animals. But that's cool. Yeah. So you got your book on Amazon, your shows, all kinds of stuff, and then we touch upon your social media. So you're. Let me get your webpage. I have everything open. That's why I'm looking at 2 screens. So it's kind of like, and it's not enough. But so you have your own author webpage.
Yes, I have a website. Just my name, KimLenglingAuthor.com.
KimLenglingAuthor.com. And you have your services on there, books. What kind of services do you offer?
I coordinate anthologies, or I help others that are doing that. I do some editing for folks. a little bit of developmental editing if needed. I have a few clients that I work with continuously, and work with doing some of their graphic design for their social media and things like that. So I do have a handful of clients that I do things for as well. I keep busy. I keep pretty busy.
Like, that's what content creation and being creative is, being busy, right? But
Right. And it's, the thing is, once the world changed and I had this mind shift of saying, I don't want to update my resume. I don't want to,
you
I'm
don't
going
want
to do this.
to break the mold and just like let's go with it.
Right.
I
I
understand.
figured I reached a certain point in my life and I'm like, I don't want to continue to help other people's dreams and legacy grow. I want to build my own.
Yeah.
So, and I'd reached a time in my life, and I'm also at a time in my life where I can do that. So I had to do everything I did before to be able to do what I'm doing now.
It was supposed to be that way. It was
Right.
supposed to happen.
Yes, that path was laid out long, long ago.
Yes.
Long, long time ago.
Yeah. I
Name that
was.
tune. Name that tune.
Oh, that's White Snake. No. White.
No, a long, long time ago. Na, 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 na,
I know the tune.
na, na, na. It's an old song. Bye bye,
I miss American
American
Pie.
Pie.
Yeah. I grew up with my old man going to do jobs, painting and construction, and he'd have all his radio on and everything, and we'd listen to CCR and the
Yes,
Stones,
that's one of my favorites.
and I listen to all that jazz. I love it. I'm all over the place with music, but I grew up with that old school that got old school flavor and mentality about life. But
That's yeah, I grew up on that as well. That was kind of my era.
yeah.
And I still listen to it. That's all I listen to.
Well, so,
I listen to a lot of music. I'm not against any type of music. Now there are certain genres that I just don't listen to because I just don't like the words in it.
yeah.
But I listen to all kinds of, I'll listen to opera one day. I get in moods. I'll listen to opera like Luciano Pavarotti. Holy cow. Just amazing. Or Andre Botticelli. Listen to him. Just amazing stuff. But then the next, maybe the next day I'll be cranking out some AC/DC, and then throwing in some CCR and then let's throw some Fleetwood Mac in there.
Yeah. I'm the same way. And I think I guess you change as you go forward through life, and music changes. And like if I go back to when I was 12 or 13, it was more along the lines of like hip hop or dance music. I think that was my sister's influence. And then you meet a couple of people and you're like, oh my God, there's this whole world of like, I mean, I'd listen to what my dad was playing and I was like, and then you hear all this like rock and metal, discover AC/DC, and then you start going back and forth. But yeah, I don't. There's particular types of rap. I don't know, I want to say rappers, but rap music that's in the mainstream industry that's just not good for children and not good for people. And they talk about things that shouldn't be talking about. I'm not against people having a good time and whatever. It's just not for me, and I don't want to listen to that stuff. But since I had those concussions, I was listening to rain. I was listening to opera. I was listening to different things for different parts of the day to kind of get your mind through the day. And yeah, that's where I'm at with that. But
and there's certain music I have too where it's like I'm feeling kind of, it's like, wow, I need to mellow everything about me down today.
Yeah.
So sometimes I just listen to there's just music, instrumental stuff.
Yeah.
Just listen to that, sit outside on the deck on a nice day and just listen, sit back, close your eyes, feel the sun on your face, feel the breeze blowing across your arms.
I just did that the other day.
Yeah. And just fall into it. That's how I like to describe it. You just sit there and just fall into it. And then you come out of it feeling a little refreshed.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's funny. It's funny as you discover things about yourself as as life changes or different opportunities open up, and you discover more of these things about yourself, and you're like, I like doing this at this time with this, or the wind with the sun with the,
Yep.
it's nice.
Being outside is big to me. That's where I breathe. So I'm outside as often as I can be.
Well, I think being home for 8 months plus, sitting on the couch, being able to do nothing, you realize what you lost and what you need. And a lot of times, what you need is, I tell my wife, I'm like, you could take off your shoes, go walk in the grass, go get dirty. Uh, like, even if it's raining, whatever the case, you need to ground it. You need to ground your soul. You need to ground your body. I think I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Other people don't know necessarily what I mean, but I mean that in a spiritual sense, and also I mean that in your body needs it in a physical sense.
Right.
And I think that's important. So I make a point to do that. Especially, I do it every day. I try to do it every day, even if it's raining. Right now, it's pouring buckets. I would still go do it. But
If there's no thunder and lightning, when my daughter was younger, she's in her 30s now. When she was younger, and it would be pouring down rain, but if there was no thunder, no lightning, just one of those really warm summer days, and it just started pouring buckets. I remember one day I looked out and I went, oh, sweetie, look, that's play rain. And she's like, what's play rain, mommy? I said, that's when we put on our old t-shirt and we run outside and play in the rain. And we did that the whole time she grew up. And there would be days as an adult where she's at work, she's in her mid late 20s, and she'd text me and say, did you notice the play rain today, mom? And I'm just like, oh, it just hits me in the feels. And because those were such, doing it was just fun. And I wanted to do something fun with my daughter, but the way it stuck with her, and now she's pregnant with her first child, which is going to be a girl.
That's
And
awesome.
it's due in October. And I keep telling her, I cannot wait for the adventures that this little nugget's going to have with grandma, because we're going to play in the rain and we're going to stomp in mud puddles and we're going to pick up worms and, all the stuff I did with my daughter. And yeah, it's just it's fun to see how that stuff is much more lasting, I think, than people might realize. Just those little moments in life that will literally stick with your child or someone you love or know. And they're going to carry that with them and pull it out of their pocket every once in a while and say, oh, remember when we used to do this? It's just an amazing thing. I think that's why I always say nuggets of hope. It's those little nuggets that a lot of times you don't even realize you're tossing out there.
You're always building characters. You're always influencing people, even the smallest nugget. That's
Right.
that's always the case. And I have a 2-year-old. She just turned 2 recently,
Oh,
and she is a chip off the old block. She's such a character, but she loves getting dirty, going in the yard, picking out the weeds and the grass. And then
yeah.
my wife's Italian. I'm half Italian, so when my father-in-law comes over, he took a portion of the yard on the side, and he says, "I'm gonna go plant tomatoes and all kinds of stuff." Said, go for it. Like, I got a million things to do. Go for it. No problem. So he did, and our tomatoes right now, they're still green, but they're like this big, and the zucchinis are like this. The zucchinis are like that big, no joke. And he comes over, rings the doorbell, and my daughter gets excited, and she goes, no, 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 and the grandfather in Italian, no, no. So he comes, and then she goes outside and she plays in the dirt with him, and she's trying to pretend that she's gardening and stuff. It's just, it's so good, it's so fun, and you're going to be a grandmother soon, so congratulations. But like, my parents changed, seeing them change with having our daughter. It's just, it's so, I mean, I'm not there. I guess I'm assuming maybe one day, hopefully it will be there and be in that position. So that will be definitely an experience for you. And
I
happy
am
for you.
so looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we've been all over the place, Kim, and coffee turned into this, turned into that, and it's been a great conversation. So I just want to plug all your social medias. So you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn, you have your personal website, you have your book on Amazon. I don't think you don't have a TikTok or anything like that. A lot of people have
No,
TikToks, but they
no,
don't use them.
yeah, no TikTok. I am on Twitter.
You're on Twitter. Uh, we're all on Twitter.
Yeah.
Come follow us, everyone. And I think that's it. Instagram, YouTube as well. YouTube as
YouTube.
well.
Yeah, I do have
Okay.
a YouTube channel.
And
That one is called, the YouTube channel is called Nuggets of Hope.
yes, it is. Nuggets of Hope 4757. So that's the actual link. Twitter, Kim Lingling. Am I saying that right?
Lengling, yeah.
Lengling. Lengling author on Instagram. You also have Facebook. You have your
Oh,
Let
that's
Fear
right. Yeah. What am I thinking? Yeah, I have
yeah.
Facebook.
Let Fear Bounce podcast. And Kimberly Lingling on LinkedIn. If anybody wants to reach out, I'm on there too. But I find LinkedIn's kind of one of those things that people just kind of, unless
I
they're
don't,
applying for jobs, they don't really.
right. I don't use LinkedIn very much. I'm not on there very often. Actually, it seems like the Facebook seems to be the platform where the most people are engaged with what I'm doing. That just, how everybody has a platform that just seems to be the one, so Facebook seems to be that one for me. I put stuff on Instagram and my YouTube. I'm trying to grow that
It's hard.
because I would like to utilize that more, and figure out, learn. I'm learning on YouTube. That's a whole new realm for me. So I'm learning on that one as I go, just like I did with everything else.
We just started transitioning older episodes to YouTube because the service we use actually does it automatically. So, like, I have it, and hoping people subscribe and whatever. And I'm not saying that's well. I got to figure it out, like you said. I got to figure out what that's all about. But
Right, because it's a whole nother little world. Because I have quite a few videos up there, and it's just nuggets of hope. So it might be something fun to watch. And then I'm putting my podcast episodes on there as well. Yeah, I'm learning as I go. And some people are really, really good at it, but it's not my full-time thing.
Managing social media, doing content creation, making shows. It's a full-time job and a full-time job. And unless you're working a full-time job and then trying to balance all that stuff together, super hard. But
Yes,
luckily you
yes,
were
it
able to
is. It's a
transition.
lot of
But
work.
yeah,
I don't think people realize, just some folks I don't think realize, just especially if you're doing more than one thing, because I've got my podcast, which is a weekly show that takes up a lot of time,
oh, yeah.
because it's not just, and this, it's not just sitting down having a chat for a half hour.
You got to go edit. You got to go put it together. You got to go upload. You got to write the description. You got to write the links. You got to tag people. Then you got to post on your social media. Then you got to engage with people. Then it's a full-time
And
job.
that's after the podcast. That's not even talking about what you have to do prior to prepare. Yeah, it's several hours worth of work for a half-hour show.
But a lot. It's funny.
Worth it.
It's funny though, because I was reading some stats the other day, and they say 90% of people, 90% of podcasts fail after the first episode, or just because people are not consistent. So there's that. And then the rest of the 10% or 9%, and I'm spitballing stats here, but it's roughly something like that. I think they make it to episode 21, and then the rest of the 1% continue. Now, whether the 1% are super,
that too.
yeah, unless the 1% are super popular, making millions of dollars, right, or they're still making 10 cents an episode or whatever the case may be, they're still the 1%. So it's consistency, and then if you make it big, or if people really enjoy your podcast, or there's that. So I found that really interesting. So
I did too when I first started, and I'm like, wow. When I had first started, the stuff I was reading said most new podcasts won't get past the 7th episode.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, why? Because it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work.
That's why, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much to actually put out something that's decent, and people are going to want to listen to and engage with. And like I said, you said the same thing. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I just did it, and I thought it was fun. And I think that comes through, that I enjoy what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And the guests enjoy their time on there. So, is my podcast the best one out there? Probably not, but that's all in someone's perception.
Well, it's also one of those mediums that can slice off a small slither of pie and target an audience that's like, this will help certain people in this area. And it's not talking about sports, and it's not talking about religion, but it's talking about this, and I'm happy with this, and people are happy with this. And I don't need to be, whatever Kim Kardashian or I don't even know if they have a podcast. Joe Rogan has his podcast, but he's a particular targets a particular
Right.
audience, and fine,
Right.
but yeah.
I figure, I'm not gonna let myself stress. And I made this decision when I started. Don't stress out over numbers, analytics, download number, all of that, because
Yeah.
everyone's saying, oh, well, you need to do this, this, and this, and then you can do this, this, and this. I'm like, I'm gonna let mine grow as it's supposed to grow.
Organic.
Yeah, just let it go. And it's, it is growing at its own little pace, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
No, that's the way it's supposed to be, because then you keep listeners, and then you gain. Like I always explain people about podcast growth. From what I understand, is like social media growth. Now, for example, Twitter, I went from 5 followers to whatever 34,000 on Twitter, or whatever the case may be, and not because I'm like the best super popular person on Twitter. It's that over time, you accumulate people, and you engage with people, or you talk to people, and it's the one. You got to focus on the one person, and then the
Right.
next person, and then the next person. And that's how it grows organically. And if you're, maybe one of your episodes you release, you get 2 new listeners,
Right.
and then by the 10th episode you got 2 more listeners, so you got 4 by 10 episodes. It's not 400, but it's 4 that weren't there before, and it's kind
Right.
of
Yeah.
snowballs. But
And I have no problem saying, hey, folks, go to my YouTube channel and subscribe, or, leave a review on my podcast, leave a rating,
yeah.
whatever. I don't mind asking that, but I don't do that all the time. I
Yeah.
don't push some. I don't know. And I'm not trying to be negative, but there are some shows I've found that it's like, it feels almost pushy. Do this, do this, do this, instead of asking.
Yeah.
Just ask nicely, ask gently. And I think, and that's just me. That's how I do things. And everybody's different. Everybody does things a different way. I just like to, gently ask.
You know what my biggest pet peeve is: people sending automated messages asking people to subscribe to their shows, or whatever the case may be. And I get them all the time, and I get people with different podcasts, and following me, and then I write back. I'm like, hi, how are you? If I feel like it. Hi, how are you? It's great that you have a podcast, but 1, you don't follow me. 2, we've never spoken before, and 3, like, you don't engage in any of my content for conversation stuff, so I don't know you. And it's kind of like,
Right.
I see that kind of stuff. I don't like, but occasionally it's fine asking. Actually, it's one of the things they say, is that it's okay to ask people to subscribe. It's okay to follow, do all that stuff, because people need a reminder too, because they're like, oh, Kim, that's a great episode, and then they turn it off, and they don't subscribe or give you a star or rating,
Right.
whether it's on Spotify or whatever. But they'll go listen to your episodes again and forget to follow or do all that stuff, and they just
Yeah.
don't realize that they need to do that to support. And it's not because you're begging. Say,
And I
hey,
think, yeah, I agree. I think there's a lot of people that do that, and it just doesn't enter their mind,
yeah,
because they don't live in that realm. They don't have a podcast. They don't understand, they're not grasping what it is, why we're saying, hey, please subscribe, or, click the like button, because it really does make a difference.
it does.
Commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing. It does. It really makes a difference for those that might be listening that aren't familiar with any of it. It really does make a difference. So,
It adds
if
up.
you find something that you like, subscribe to it, hit that like button, comment on it, because it really does help the creator. It truly does. That's just not blowing smoke when people say that.
It's true. Actually, what final point? I'll my final point, and then I'll give you the floor for to wrap up. But I'm going to bring on potentially some content creators slash gamers, streamers that do Twitch and things like that. Twitch, for people who don't know, Twitch is a streaming platform for not just gaming, but podcast hosting, talk shows, and all kinds of stuff. And there is one particular person that I'm going to bring on, and she's going to use her character name and not her real name. And I said it's fine, because you got your job and all that stuff. You don't want people to know. She would, when I was off, I didn't do much. I was sitting on the couch, and occasionally I would get a message. And this was like, I'd say 4 months ago. And she messaged me saying, Mike, what do you think about this? Is it okay I ask you these questions? And I'm like, no problem, because I'm not gaining anything from it. I'm here. Like, let's talk. I'll give you advice. And she'd ask me, what do you think about Facebook, or what do you think about this platform, and what do you think? How do I go about, improving? And I say, well, always go small improvements. Whether it's upgrading your microphone, not right away. Don't go spend thousands of dollars, because you don't know where you're going to be and what you're going to do. Do small improvements, whatever you're going to do for your stream, for your podcast, for whatever. And I said the best thing I could give you advice on is engagement and growth and community growth. It's about the people, not you, and it's about the community. And so, long story short, 4 months later, I pop in, and she went from streaming with 0 people to sometimes having 30, 40, or 50 people in her channel, which is fantastic. And then she also has other content and different things she does. And the one thing I noticed that she had was that, for I don't know if you know, but for there's this app called Discord. Discord is it's a platform for businesses, for gamers, for whatever, and you could host your own community on there. And she created a community. It must be, I don't know, 300 to almost 1,000 people in there. And so she created a community outside of her stream and her content creation, and engages with people outside of her time and what she does, to engage with them, and creates a community. And then those people come back and visit her, and then she posts all her content and different things, and it's about life and connecting. Like, kind of, I was amazed by that. And I was like,
Wow.
that I gave that advice, and I'm not even doing that. It was that I wanted to mention that, because it's what it's about. It's about people and community growth, and they'll come back if they feel like they're part of the community.
Right.
So,
And my thing is to do what you can. Don't feel that you have to be on every single platform,
right,
because that's a tremendous amount of time.
it's too much.
It's way too much. That's why, I'm not on all the platforms. There's certain ones that I'm on, and certain ones that are more engaged in than the others. But I still keep my toe in a couple of them, just so I'm out there. But I made the decision quite a while ago. Don't let, like I said earlier, the numbers and the analytics, don't let that stress you out. You're
No,
doing this because you love it. Don't stress yourself out to the point where you don't like doing it anymore.
yeah, because then it becomes more of a chore than it does a passion or
Right.
a job, right?
Right.
So,
And I would rather be talking to more people on my podcast than spending time on social media, to be honest.
100%, 100%. I
Yeah.
ask people all the time, like, come register to the website, and I'll get to you eventually, and then we'll have a chat. I'd rather do that, even if it's 10 minutes. Hey, come for 10 minutes, come for an hour, whatever the case may be. And I'd rather do that than stare at my screen going like this all day.
Right. Yeah. I don't want to do that.
I don't blame you. But so, what I always do is I give the guests usually the final words, maybe words of wisdom, whatever they want to share with us, to wrap up. So, what do you have for us, Kim?
Well, since my thing is nuggets of hope, I'm going to toss out a nugget of hope.
There you go.
So, and we've touched on a lot of it. If you find yourself out there, you feel like you're just kind of floating aimlessly. You've been tossed in a boat and you have no oars. You're just kind of floating with the tide, and you're like,
Mhm.
where am I going? What am I doing? I can't do anything. I'm worthless. I'm no good at this, no good at that. I hate my job. If you're in one of those spots, because we all get there at some point in our life, we all will. If you haven't been yet, you will be, unfortunately. If you find yourself at that spot someday in the future, or if you're in it right now, don't let that darkness settle on your shoulders and become a weight, because you are worth something. There is a reason that you're here on this planet, and you have something to share that's going to actually help someone else. You might not feel like that, but you do. There is that nugget of goodness and love and compassion in everybody, and you might not feel it, but maybe somebody's walking up to you and they have it, and they're going to hand it off to you, and you might not even realize it. So be open to those nuggets of hope that others are throwing at you. And then in turn, you yourself be a nugget of hope for someone, because you will have been through the fire, and you'll be coming out stronger for it, and you can help someone else along the way. So in other words, be kind. Just be kind. Be a kind person.
That's it. That's simple. Be kind, and you'll never know, and you're going to get that nugget of hope thrown your way.
That's right.
Wise words, Kim. Thanks. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And, I'm sure we'll stay in touch. Tag me.
Absolutely. Because I want to hear about this new dog you're getting.
Well, I gotta ask my wife if we're getting a new dog. my daughter would love it, but now I think we would have gotten she's allergic to cats, but I think we would have gotten a dog by now if it wasn't for like the busy schedule, like waking up at 5 or 6 and then getting home at 4 or 5 in the evening, and then it's not fair to an animal. So
no, you're right.
We didn't do that. Maybe if I ever shift out of education into something like this and I'm home, maybe I would definitely get an animal. But
maybe you'll be doing this full time soon.
Hey, listen, I'm open to all kinds of. I almost took a remote insurance job at the beginning of the year. It was an opportunity, and then long story short, I went through like 4 rounds of interviews, and then there was technicalities from where I'm living to where the head office was, so that didn't happen. But I almost did that, and I would have been able to balance all this and do more plus that from home, and then the concussion happened. So things happen.
But things do happen, and you never know what nuggets are going to come out of this.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the Mr. Mike Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing to your platform of choice. For more updates and exclusive content, visit our website at www.mrmikemtl.com. Stay relaxed, stay inspired, and we'll see you next time.